So today we're going to do a book review, and the book is going to be Freedom's Forge by Herman. This is one of the best historical books on an industrial mobilization effort that helped win World War II, and probably the largest industrial mobilization effort. So already, if you're thinking about FAR Part 6 exclusions to other than full and open, industrial mobilization being one of those exceptions, here's a really good example. So Freedom's Forge is all about car manufacturers in America who really led the war production effort, which helped win World War II. Major industrial mobilization book, but it's also chock full of information about contracting. So connecting the dots is very easy. So I'll discuss all these topics and even the contractual topics, but in its essence, this really is about industry-government collaboration and all of the challenges that came with that. A lot of these challenges will be very relatable. Some of the tension that existed between industry and government exists today as it did in the 1940s. It also shows you historically that sometimes major catastrophic events can help energize this collaboration. So Freedom's Forge talks about the World War II era. Before some of the major conflict happened, you got government up here and industry down here, and there really being a disconnect. So the book goes into, a lot of these major manufacturers, like car manufacturers, really didn't want to have any business working with the government, and for reasons that are very similar to what we have today. And then something happened. This catastrophic event happened, which was Pearl Harbor. And on December 7th, after Pearl Harbor happened, what we can see in Freedom's Forge is this new type of industrial mobilization, this new kind of effort and teamwork between industry and government. So we see this in other times in history as well. We can look at the 1960s and what we call the space race, right? We got government again, we got industry. What was the event that happened that really kicked off into gear a major industrial government effort? Well, Sputnik, right? After Sputnik happened, there's a wake-up call for America. Kennedy made his speech about landing a man on the moon by 1969, or within 10 years, and we have the same type of activity. Whole markets were created. All these companies were created to lend itself to the space era. And then we have similar instances as well. So we have another example of a catastrophic event. We have government working together with industry, not to the same degree as the first two, but we still see it, 9/11. And after that happened, we have a other kind of government type industry relationship where we have these automated drones and these planes that can fly by themselves and some of that. So, it's not quite the same as World War II, but we still see it. So we're talking about Freedom's Forge. If you want to know more about this type of public-private teamwork with the 60s space race, a book like American Moonshot is a great book for that. For 9/11, you can look at Nevermind, We'll Do It Ourselves, which is a great book, chock full of government contracting examples that really talk about that time right after 9/11 and the type of action that the Pentagon was called into to take it up a notch on the technology side. Okay, so I've got some notes here, and I'm just going to mention some topics that jumped out to me. So one was this idea that Bill Knudsen, who was a major car manufacturer, came up with, which is flexible mass production or standardization. So in order for him to manufacture so many products like tanks, planes, at the speed he needed to, he did a process that's very similar to this modern agile, even DevSecOps type process. It talks a lot about how he relied on user feedback, and that comes into play a lot in this book. And it really is what helped him use the flexibility to make sure he was delivering the right product for the warfighter. So another big topic here, and this is probably the biggest topic, really the tone of this book, is this public-private collaboration and tension. Ultimately, this is one of the best feel-good books about what industry and government can do together. And they had all the same problems. And I'll just list some examples here. There was suspicion from federal inspectors, which the industry had to deal with, and how regulations seemed to halt the progress that industry was trying to make. Defining requirements, that was a problem. Mil specs became an issue. At one point in the book, the Army insisted on the buttons for the uniforms being made of horn ivory instead of the new celluloid, which the industry just came out with. Industry lost that battle in this book, by the way, and they continued to use the expensive ivory for their buttons. At one point in the book, it mentions that many lives were lost due to the Army's insistence on a particular engine design, despite industry's insistence to do it a particular way. So there was a misperception in World War II about just needing to go fast to produce. And Bill Knudsen rightly acknowledged that what we need to do first is set up an infrastructure, set up processes so that we can leverage that and really go fast. Same type of challenges we have today. When the government finally learned to not control every aspect of production, but to get out of the way and let industry do its thing, that's when we started making huge strides with the industrial mobilization effort. And that's when the teamwork increased. Okay, so the rating for this book, this is on a 5 FAR scale. So relevance, 5 out of 5 FARs. This is very relevant to acquisition, contracting. There's so many connections to be made. Readability. Now I put 4 FARs for readability. This is a little thicker. So if you want your team to read this book, they are going to have to be history fans, I think. It's not that long. It's about 400 pages, but it is a history book. Total, we're going to give it 4.5 FARs. Very great book. Hopefully there won't be some catastrophic event that kicks this into gear. But the encouraging thing about books like Freedom Forge is that if that ever were to happen, I'm personally very confident, having looked at the history of these past events and the books to go with these, that government and industry would work together for the protection of our nation. Now, the trick, though, is to not have this kind of event happen and to have us start working together in an industrial mobilization effort to make better use of emerging technologies such as artificial intelligence, for example, and to make sure that AI isn't put into the hands of foreign adversaries before something like this catastrophic event happens.